Hello, once again, my friends. Welcome to Spiritism, a closer look, transmitted by Kardec Radio. That's where you are right now, Kardec Radio. I'm Luiz Lima, your host for tonight, broadcasting from Orlando, Florida. Tonight, we are going to take a closer look at the concept of justice. Justice is one of these things that it's very difficult for us incarnate spirits to fully understand. We don't fully understand periods, but we are actually far away from getting to know what divine justice is. And the reason for that, it has to do with our evolution, with our level of advancement, moral advancement. But before we get into that, let's try to define justice. In the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec places this question, he makes these questions to the spirits, and he asks, how may justice be defined? Okay, so I'm just going to tell you what the answer is, and we're going to work on it a little bit. The spirits respond. Justice consists in respecting the rights of others. And then the next question Kardec asks is, what determines these rights? And the answer is two things: human law and natural law. Okay, we're going to stop here for a minute. Let's discuss a little bit all of these things. So first, justice. When we are under looking at things from the spiritist point of view, or if you're reading spiritist literature, lectures, whatever it is, every time the word justice pops up, it has to be understood correctly. It's not justice in the sense that you think it is. It's not justice that I define myself and it's different from yours slightly. It's justice. It's a straightforward concept. There is no justice, 15 different justices. There is no such a thing. It's like God. In Spiritist literature, every time you see the word God, it means one thing and one thing only. There is no, older man with a beard, and there's nothing like this. Justice is the same thing. It's not what any of us define. It's not what any of us would like it to be. No. Justice consists in respecting the rights of others. Okay. And again, what determines these rights? Two things: human law and natural law. Natural law is the law of God, the one we have trouble understanding. So we'll get to that shortly. Let's talk about human law because we are much more familiar with it. Human law is something that's feasible to us. We live in societies that have laws and disciplinary laws, social laws, whatever you want to call, but we are used to that. It's something closer to us than divine law is. So let's start right there. Human laws, this is important. Human laws are established, created and established by spirits, by humans, undergoing trials and expiations. That's why they are here on this planet. So those in charge of making the laws, they are also, just like you and me, spirits undergoing trials and expiations. So they are spirits. They are not perfect. They have their things they have to work on. They have their situations and circumstances, but they are not perfect. These laws that they write are appropriate for their customs and character. It might sound strange. This is in the Spirit's book, actually. The laws that we as humans write, create, and write and establish are appropriate for our customs and our character. So they are extremely limited because these two things, our customs and our character, are limited. These laws are so limited that they are subject to change. Time and place matters. For example, laws that we have today were perfect for, let's say, society, let's just say 1,000 years ago. They don't make any sense today anymore. So that law of 1,000 years ago, somewhere along the line, along the way, it had to be changed, adapted, dropped, whatever it was. But time and place matters. Place means the laws that we make for this country, this state, this city, this group might not be the same law for another state, another country, another group. So the laws that we make are not immutable to begin with. So, recapping, these laws are written by imperfect spirits undergoing trials and expiations. They are written for their own customs and character. So, justice, something that seemed to be just in the past, might not be it now, might not make any sense today. The rights established by humans not necessarily conform to justice, justice as defined by Spiritism. So the laws that we create and establish not necessarily conform to justice. It might be something that is convenient for us, that suits our customs, and it fits our character, but in no way it guarantees that they conform to justice as defined by Spiritism. These laws, if you think about it, they only regulate certain social relations. People interacting with society, or groups of people interacting among them. Not necessarily these laws address actions. They are exclusive part of the court of our conscience, which is individual, and nobody can do that for us. It's personal, not transferable. And that's the one we have trouble with. So the concept of justice in our society, in a group, or even as a person, as a spirit in progress, the concept of justice is progressive. It changes. It will improve with the evolution of the intelligent principle, the spirit. It will change with time. Within the same one lifetime, we might change our laws more than once, actually, because things evolve, and the law that was great a few years ago might not be any great anymore. And it changes over time. And if you look at a long run, with across several different incarnations. So again, laws that were, supposedly perfect or adequate for 500 years ago on a society, not necessarily are good now. So people, us incarnated here, people understand justice differently from each other. And that's another problem. There is no common ground for defining justice. Your personal definition. Spiritism has its definition, and that cannot be changed. That's it. That's the one. Now, a circumstance that makes me feel just about that might make somebody else feel not just. So something is wrong because we look at the same circumstance, we look at the same situation, and one tells, "Oh, yeah, there's justice there." The other looks at it, "There's no justice there." So it gets complicated because we all have our different level of moral advancement, which interferes in our interpretation of justice. So justice for us is not really an absolute concept. It's a concept that depends on our level of evolution. And that's why, because our level of moral advancement is not so great right here on earth, most of us see justice from this erroneous point of view. We don't see as we should. And then we clash with the idea of divine justice. So there's revolt, and we have a hard time with it. So if you look at evolution as a general, we know there are 5 categories of worlds. Primitive worlds, those are for the first incarnation of the human soul. Then we have a next layer, which is trials and expiations. That's us right now, right here. One of the main things on trials and expiations is the domination of evil. Evil outweighs good. The next level is regenerative worlds. There's still expiation, but not with the struggles and all the problems that we have. It's different. It's a lot lighter, if you will. The next one, happy worlds. It's the other way around from us here. Good outweighs evil. And then at the top, we have divine worlds, which are good, where good reigns completely. That's for purified spirits. So if you look at this 5 categories of worlds, the lower you are at the scale, and the bottom of the scale are primitive worlds. Those are the worlds, and those spirits living in these worlds have almost no notion of what justice is. Almost no notion. The first incarnations of for the human soul. In trials and expiations, that's us here. That's us here. We have better understanding of justice than as compared to primitive worlds. However, again, one of the main characteristics of trials and expiations worlds is evil dominates. So the understanding that we have about justice is contaminated by our evil influences. So it's kind of, if we if we bring evil into the concept of justice, and then this is no longer justice. It's justice contaminated. You can call it anything else, but don't call it justice. That's why we have such a hard time. And evil dominates here on earth, and in different levels for each person, for each individual. And then we have different levels of interference of this evil over the concept of justice. And that's why there are several different avenues for understanding justice here on earth. And it shouldn't be, but it is relatively easy to understand. Everybody's on a different level of evolution. That level of evolution matters for interpretation of all things, justice included. So the concept of justice is complicated for us because of that. Now, when Jesus was here, incarnated with us, he tried to, not that he tried, he did. We didn't grasp it completely, but he did show us the basis that we should use for justice. And it's very simple. He said that in one phrase, which is a very short phrase. Do to others what you would like them to do to you. That's it. That's the basis for justice. So it means like desiring for others what we would desire for ourselves. Desiring for others what we would desire for ourselves, which, by the way, is not the same as desire for ourselves what we would desire for others. That's different. So the basis for justice, desire for others what we would desire for ourselves. And that establishes the basis for justice. And from here, from that, we conclude that we are supposed to take our personal rights. The whole thing about justice is about rights. What are my rights? So we are supposed to take our personal rights as the basis to define the rights of our neighbor. That's interesting. So, what is the right that my neighbor has? The same I do. If I think that, just being aggressive to my neighbor is a right that I have, he has the same. He can be as aggressive to me as I am to him. So, this idea of doing to others what we would like them to do to us establishes or was established by Jesus as the very core for understanding justice. So even if we cannot understand in words and explain this is justice and so and so and so at the God's level, and we can't, this establishes our reference. So the rights of my neighbor are the same ones that I think I have. If I can do things that will, be negative to him, he can do the same to me. And because we don't have this great understanding about justice, divine justice, I'm saying, there's a chapter in the Gospel according to Spiritism that very smartly, I would say, Allan Kardec named the chapter Strange Moral. So in this chapter, he picked up some of the teachings that Jesus brought to us when he was here incarnated. And they sound like strange, really strange. But why do they sound strange? Because we have a hard time understanding them. It's the same thing with miracles. If you don't understand why certain things happen, they are miracles. Oh my God. When you understand, they're just things that happened. So it's the same thing here. If we do not understand morality as we should in terms of justice, we are going to have a hard time. And a lot of the things that he taught, that he said, that he did, sound and look strange. So things like abandon father and mother and family members. And so if you don't understand why, it's going to be like, how come? Should I, just pack and go and leave them behind, never talk to them again? No, that's not what it is. It's something different. It's more subtle than this. You have some family members with you. You have sons and spouse and whatever it is, and you are on your track for perfection, towards perfection. And if they are having a hard time, if you cannot, at a certain point, you're trying to help, you bring them over, you give them a hand, you pull them, towards the right direction. But if they don't want to do that, you cannot stop your evolution. You have to let them, leave them behind. It's not leaving behind in the sense that you're doing evil attitudes. No, it's because I can't stop. They will have the opportunity. They're not ready for that yet. Insisting in with the situation. It's not going to help them. It's not going to help any of them. That's why that's one of the strange morals that I'm just brought up for illustration here on our talk. But if you go back to the chapter, strange morals, that's what it is about. Things that we needed when he came, when he was incarnate. We needed to be more morally evolved to understand. We are now more evolved, not fully, not completely, but it's better than before. So, as our society or societies across the world, across the globe, as society evolves, some of the laws that addressed specific situations or circumstances might need to be dropped because they don't make any sense anymore. For example, duels. Duels. Two guys they go back to back, they take a gun, they walk apart, they turn around and they shoot each other. We don't need a law that says today this is forbidden, for example, because naturally in our society it doesn't make sense anymore. And several different situations and specific situations or circumstances, our laws just drop them because it wouldn't make sense anymore. And the same is going to happen from now towards the future. For example, so certain types of crime today we didn't have in the past. For example, fraudulent electronic transfer of money, of funds. This is something new because electronic transfer of money is something relatively new. So 200 years ago, nobody would ever write a law to address that because it wouldn't make sense. Today, or when electronic transfer of money or funds started, and we had situations where people were stealing money, then we had to address that with laws. These laws, wherever it is, each country is different, but wherever it is, these laws are going to be in place until a certain time where this is no longer needed because it's not going to make sense anymore. And you see, that's the law that we are used to. This changing law, this moving target, this moving target. Divine law is not a moving target. That's it. It was established. It will never change. It's just eternal. Now, coming back to our laws here, our human laws. I said in the beginning, they were laws written by imperfect spirits undergoing trials and expiations, of course. So these laws, when they are written by lower class spirits, incarnated, okay, when they are written by lower class spirits, they will include a lot more things than if they are written by a higher class spirit. For example, a lower class spirit writing a law might put a lot of effort, a lot of emphasis on, let's just say, robbery, stealing, something like that. Laws written by higher class spirits are not going to address that so much because that's not part of it's not on his radar. For a lower class spirit, that is their life every day. That's what they do. They rob, they steal, and so on. So it is their reality. So our laws have all these millions of articles because they have to address a lot of things that imperfect spirits shouldn't be doing, but they do. So our laws have to account for that, have to take that into consideration. So the moral of evolution that we are on, our moral of advancement, moral evolution, completely limits our reading about the laws of God. We read the laws of God and we grasp maybe a few percent out of it. And why is that? Why can't I grasp the whole thing? And to begin with, if I don't grasp the whole thing, I'm going to get into a situation here and there where, for me, God is not just. But you see, the limitation is not on the law. The limitation is on my ability to read the law in its full extent. And I can't. Not God's law. Being just requires, in the sense of the word, requires an absolute sense of the truth. I can only be just, completely, fully just, if I know the truth, not part of the truth, the whole truth. For me to know the truth with all its, I can't have a fragmented truth. For me to know the truth, the whole truth, I need to be able to process this using three abilities. First, I have to know it all. Omniscient. I have to be omniscient. I have to know everything. Okay, so now I know everything. All right. Second, I have to be omnipresent. I have to be everywhere at the same time to know it all. Otherwise, if there's one little place that I can't be, I don't know it all anymore. So, omniscient implies or calls for omnipresence. And third, that gives me the third ability, omnipotent. Then I can do everything. Then I'm able to do everything. But guess what? None of us have these three abilities: omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. There's only one. And that's the one who wrote the laws. So who am I? Who are you without full knowledge of the truth to argue, to impose my truth over his, my justice over his? Abiding to all of this requires a lot of humility. And because spirits undergoing trials and expiations in living in worlds like the earth, this is one of our challenges. It's easier for some, more difficult for others, but it is a challenge overall. Being humble, humility, it's still something that we are learning little by little. Otherwise, we are going to place ourselves in this upon this throne and give orders to everybody, God included. And that's not what Jesus said. That's not what Spiritism said. That's what makes me unhappy. Thank you very much, my friends, for being with us today. Kardec Radio and Spiritism, a closer look. We'll be here again every week. We are here at Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you very much for tonight, participation, and be well. We'll see you next time.